for auditing your work. Auditing is all about understanding the flow of information through your worksheets so that you understand where things are moving in your calculations, and that makes it easier to diagnose and fix problems and prevent them in the first place. You already know that you can go to a cell and hit F2 to open it up and see the formulas inside. What you might not know is that you can hold Control and then hit the tilde symbol, and that will expand Excel so that you can see the formulas in all of your cells on your worksheet. So now I can move my arrow keys, and as I move, it'll highlight the precedent cells. So here my precedent cells are H6 and A7, and they're highlighted in blue and red. Here my precedent cells are G6 and G7. If I go down here, it highlights the precedent cells, which are in different places on my worksheet. And so this can make it easier to audit and make sure that your formulas are consistent and that they make sense. When you're ready to toggle back to the normal view, just hold Control and hit tilde again. Excel has another shortcut that lets you jump to your precedent cells, and that is Control, open bracket. When I hit that, you'll see that I automatically highlight the precedent cells for H8. From here, I can do the same shortcut again, Control, open bracket, and now I'm highlighting these precedent cells. Then I can do it again, Control, open bracket, and in doing that, I can trace all of the values that flow into a certain cell. You'll notice that this only works for direct precedents, that is, cells whose values flow directly into the cell that I have highlighted. If I also want to highlight indirect precedents, I can hold Control and then add Shift and then open bracket, and it's going to highlight all of the cells on my worksheet that are precedent to the cell that I have highlighted. If you want, you can do this in reverse. So I could go up to my scenario cell, and I can trace my dependents, which are the cells that depend on the value in this cell, by holding Control and then hitting close square bracket. And obviously you can see that the growth percentages are dependent on the scenario that we choose. So now you can go down here to your revenue growth percentage and hold Control and close bracket and see that cell F6 is dependent on that revenue growth percentage. Then you can do it again, and you'll see that there are several other cells that are dependent. If you want, you can also hold Control and then add Shift and then close bracket, and you'll see all of the cells on your worksheet that are dependent on the cell that you have selected. Now, this might not be super useful because it doesn't give you a lot of information about the flow and how these cells connect together. So the way that you can do that is by using Excel's Trace Precedents and Trace Dependence tools. Did someone say flow? If I go back to my scenario cell and hit Alt and then M and D for trace dependence, it points these arrows toward all of the cells that are dependent on the cell that I have highlighted, and the arrows make it a little bit more clear the direction that we're moving. So now if I wanted, I can go down to my revenue growth, and I can do the same thing. Alt, M for formulas, D for trace dependence. And you'll see that this value is flowing up to my revenue. I could do the same thing, Alt, M, D, and see that this is flowing into 3 other cells, and in that way you can build out the flow visually so that you see where things are moving. It works in the same way if I go over here and hit Alt, M, and P to trace precedents. I can create the arrows that trace the precedent cells, and then I can go backwards. I could go here and then Alt, M, P, and it'll show me those precedent cells. As you're adding all these arrows, it can get a little bit busy, so to remove them, you can hit Alt, M, and then A to remove arrows. And you can hit P to remove only the precedent arrows, D to remove only the dependent arrows, or I'm going to hit A and just remove them all.